Hi, everyone. I'm Doreen Redmond from AARP North Dakota, and I'm so glad you've joined us for the Passport to Healthy Living Winter Wellness Program. Taking these events online is one way we can connect on healthy living topics and still stay safe, coming to you from our homes. For more than 60 years, AARP has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans, and we're continuing that work today with the Passport to Healthy Living program. Today, we're pleased to have with us Dr. Paul Nussbaum. He's a professor in neurological surgery at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine and is the founder of the Brain Health Center. Welcome, Dr. Nussbaum, and thank you so much for joining us today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Doreen, it's good to see you again, and thank you, Lyle and Josh, for inviting me back to be with my friends in North Dakota and AARP. As you know, Doreen, first of all, I'm very grateful to be here. I came out of Pennsylvania this morning, and as everybody knows, we're getting hit there with a pretty big snowstorm, so your prayers are needed for our friends and family there. But, I've been interested in aging for many, many years and working with older adults and helping people achieve health and brain health across their lifespan. So I'm excited today to be part of the Healthy Living Seminar series.
Well, thank you. It has been such a tough year, and it just feels like we all kind of need this right now to, talk about those long, dark nights nowadays, and, the holidays are here, and it's going to be different for everybody. So we want to approach this in a good manner, and you're here to help us do that. So I'm going to let you take it away, Dr. Nussbaum, and provide your presentation, and we'll come back at the end with some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. And Doreen raises some very interesting and real thoughts about our reality as we go into the winter season. I can tell you, in waking up this morning, I experienced anxiety in hoping to get to the airport before the snow came, so that I could get to Florida, where I spend quite a bit of time. And be able to be with you here today. And it reminded me, because I'm a native of Pennsylvania, of what it is like, what happens to our mood and our thinking and our behavior when we're in an environment that is a bit traumatic, and winter can do that to us. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And believe me, you have the power and the resiliency within you to cope quite well. I'm sure you've done that already many times in your life, but in fairness, I think it's fair to say, starting with me and for you, that there are times when we almost want to wave the white flag, when it can be very difficult. So let's talk a little bit about that today, and hopefully I can provide you with some helpful tips. Lyle's going to help me with the slides here today, so you'll hear me talking a little bit to him. This is a wonderful slide. In 2002 or 3, I wrote a book called Brain Health and Wellness. It was really at the frontier. I was lucky to be part of some folks who were trying to take what we knew about the animal model, the animal brain, exposed to different kinds of environments, to the human level. And it turns out that there are sort of 5 major areas that we can think about in our own life. So think about yourself looking at a mirror right now. There's nutrition, and there's socialization, there's mental stimulation, spirituality, and there's physical activity. And these are 5 primary areas where there are research-based activities within each and every one of them. I call them the brain health slices of the pie, that we can engage in to help promote both the function and the structure of our brain. Now, why is that important? It's important because I want you all to understand that the epicenter, okay, the command control, the power seat, however you want to phrase it, is the human brain. And just beginning with point number 1 today, your brain is the grand maestro for the rest of the body. So the rest of your body will follow what your brain orchestrates or commands or dictates. And we're the only animal on the planet who, through a single thought, can make ourselves miserable or happy. And so that is where you have complete control, regardless of what's going on around you. Some of the greatest stories in the history of civilization are those individuals who, when bombarded with heavy doses of trauma, maintained their humor and their ability for gratitude. And for us, coping with snow, loss of sunlight, cold weather, COVID, isolation. It all begins with how we think about that, because the rest of our body will follow suit. So this is a nice little, I trademarked this brain health lifestyle. This is my approach. And this is a way for you to organize your own life. And we'll tap on this a little bit as we go through the talk today. So if we look at our next slide, in terms of psychological well-being for the winter, some of the challenges that may occur. And Lau, you can advance the next slide. So one of the things we know, which really is out of our control, right? Light gets reduced because we have less sunlight as we go through the winter months. And the funny joke about being in Pittsburgh, where I grew up, is that that's not even just in the winter. We just have less sunlight. So it's a real issue. We kind of make fun of ourselves. But it's not just your exposure to sunlight. I want you to understand that the back of your eyes, you have what are called photoreceptors within the retinal cells that receive they receive light. And you're not seeing with those photoreceptors, but what is happening is the light comes in and it begins to trigger hormonal reactions in your body. And for example, your circadian rhythm is roughly 24 hours. And with sunlight, the emergence of the sun, our body begins to react actually by becoming aroused. Our blood pressure increases, glucose is stimulated. We are ready to begin our day, and we get moving. And as the day goes on and the sun goes down, there's a different kind of wavelength called orange waves. The light in the morning is called blue waves. As the sun goes down, those are called orange waves. And what happens hormonally to us is we begin to become a bit more drowsy, and we're preparing for sleep. Our body temperature changes. We're not as aroused. Melatonin increases, and we're ready for sleep. And that happens to us each and every day. And the body needs that. When we have less of the blue light, less of the light from the sun that helps to arouse us, we can easily become a bit dysphoric, sad, sluggish, perhaps depressed at times. And there's a whole disorder called seasonal affective disorder. And that's all about something as simple as light. There's a whole field called daylighting. If you're interested, you can kind of look that up. And there's been businesses built around daylighting. Stress is increased with weather change as well, because simply we can't be as mobile. It's a bit more treacherous to walk, to drive. It can be scary at times. We have to dress very differently. And we're not able to get where we need to get and to do the things we would like to do quite as easily. So there's all kinds of things that occur simply from the weather change. And as a result, isolation does increase. And we see the mental health damages that COVID has done in terms of isolation. The same thing, to probably a less degree, but to a significant degree, occurs from winter coming on. And as a result of isolation, we move less. Before I left my hotel room in the Pennsylvania area today, I saw a report that orthopedic specialists are concerned now because more and more patients are complaining of pain in their body because we're not moving. And so the joints become stiff, the muscles, you can even atrophy because we're not using them quite as much, we're not moving. And so that's a side corollary kind of problem from isolation and lack of movement. I talked a little bit about the stress of transportation, simply driving, not being able to see, sliding. There are safety risks. And these are things that we're mindful of and we're conscious of, and therefore can produce stress. Our social interaction is reduced both at work and certainly with family and friends. And COVID-19 continues to be problematic for us. The good news is, with this miracle of a virus that has come out so fast for our country, and so many people that have worked on that to make it happen, and about 3 million people, is my understanding, roughly, have already been vaccinated. And so that's good news for us. That provides some psychological relief, some hope. But COVID is something that has created isolation. Yeah, just yesterday, I went to where my mom lives, who's 96, and had to stand outside. It was cold, and talked from a phone as she sat on the inside. Now, that's not natural, but for me, psychologically, it was a step more positive than doing it with an iPad. Because one of the other things that's very important is that when we look each other through the eye to eye, there's again hormonal reactions that are very, very positive, and we're missing that a bit when we become isolated. And part of becoming isolated is we may watch TV and listen to the radio and be on our social media more than we really need to be. And oftentimes the news is just flat out negative. And so part of the message here today is, again, control you have is to tune that out and tune into yourself. Stay away from the negativity. There's no reason we have to listen to anybody out there trying to be negative for us, because we want to be positive, because the body will follow what we think. Next slide, Lau. So some general tips, okay? Some general tips. And I'm not one who feels real great about giving people tips, because I don't think it does you service, because what we're talking about right now is pretty complicated and it deserves some time. And out of respect for you, I just don't want to throw tips at you. But for the sake of time, here's some things that I think generally are worth thinking about. Oftentimes, people like me and people in self-help sort of professions will tell you to do A, B, C, and D. You need to do more of this, more of that, more of this, go buy this, do this. I've learned myself over time that probably less is better than doing more. Not in all cases. But I want you to think about that for yourself. Having less oftentimes is quite helpful. Striving for less, worrying about more, so that you accept less, oftentimes is better. That leads to all kinds of things, such as minimalizing your life, having less stuff, less clutter, less responsibility. That's not necessarily positive for you. And with that, you'll have less stress. Humility follows from that. Humility is basically you're being able to say, look, I'm okay with very little, and I'm okay being in the back so that everybody else can be in the front. That my ego is no longer needs to be first and foremost. And being grateful. I told Doreen, and I've already told you how grateful I am for being here today. This is an area that is, gratitude leads to mental health. So even when we are bombarded with all the negative things that are going on around us, and it is true, we still have the ability to be humble, to seek less, and to be grateful for what we have. So when you hear the conversation going something like, hasn't 2020 been the worst year ever? Think positively about what you can be grateful about in 2020. I'm sure there's more than one thing. I'm a big one in believing about the non-earthbound. This goes to God and spirituality. As you recall in that first slide, spiritual health is critically important. I just got done doing a webinar with over 100 surgeons, and I encourage them to pray with their patients, to seek forgiveness, and to understand that that they've been granted a gift from above to help people, but to understand that they're not responsible for their gift, and they're not responsible if things go wrong. But they have to be responsible for accepting the gift and doing the best that they can. For the rest of us, the same thing adheres, that in times when we feel we just don't have much hope, or that everything may feel like it's going wrong, don't look to the earth for solutions or to humans for solutions. Go to God or to a higher being, and do engage in prayer. There's plenty of research that indicates prayer and meditation and engagement in nature and spiritual health enhances the immune system, reduces inflammation, reduces depression, provides hope. There's a whole field called neurotheology if you're interested in that one. And basically, friends, the thing we know we have is today. It's good to plan, but just remember you have today. And we have the rest of this day, we hope. And so enjoy the moment, enjoy the time that you have today. Next slide, Lau. Those are some general tips. Here's a wonderful slide of the human brain. We've kind of pulled it apart like an Oreo cookie, so you're looking into the middle. The purple area there up front is sort of where the eyes are on your forehead. Where you see the yellow dots, that's coming up from the spinal cord into the brainstem. And deep inside the brain, you have that green structure you can see there called the amygdala. That's the structure that fires when you're experiencing acute stress. And it's important that our brain perceives acute stress. So maybe a car is coming towards me, or a book's going to fall off the shelf at me, or there's something in my environment that could be potentially threatening. It's important that we recognize that so that we can react and survive. And so having that ability is very important. But when that green structure fires, a couple of things happen. Number one, it tells the brain to produce neurochemicals such as norepinephrine. That's sort of adrenaline of the brain. So it gets the brain hypervigilant and on alert that we need to really pay attention. There's a potential life-threatening stressor here. It also kicks in the endocrine system through what's called the hypothalamus, and that begins to trigger your hormones. And one of the hormones that can get triggered with chronic stress is called cortisol. And when cortisol gets triggered, what happens is your body responds by having a fast heart rate. You begin to perspire, your digestion shuts off, your reproductive desires shut off, you become hypervigilant. You actually promote more blood flow to your biceps and to your quads, and that's because into your lungs, and that's because you need to have more oxygen and you need to be prepared to fight or to flee. It's interesting. The other interesting thing that happens is it really does damage to our ability to learn and to remember. So you might be surprised by the number of individuals who come to see me who think maybe they have Alzheimer's, and they really don't. They're just juggling too many balls, and they're just way out of balance emotionally and psychologically, and they're stressed out of their minds. And so it shuts off an important structure, the purple structure there called the hippocampus, which is where you learn. So chronic stress will shut off your learning system temporarily until the stressor is removed. The other part of the brain that I want you to look at here is the insula, and that deep structure within the middle of the brain, at the core of the brain. That's known as your reward system. And those structures there help you to produce what's called dopamine, as an example, which is the pleasure neurochemical, and serotonin, which helps to stabilize mood and appetite. Oxytocin, which is what you may feel when you are nursing a baby or holding a baby or holding a puppy. And when you engage in things like we talked about gratitude and kindness and forgiveness and love, the reward system loves this and will fire, and simultaneously you won't be able to be bitter or angry or judgmental. And so one of the things I've been working on with physicians as well as with the general public is to practice some of the things we're talking about today when we talk about coping. And some of that involves kindness and forgiveness, particularly now during the holiday. It's a great time because it's very normal to have people in our life circle who maybe have angered us or we have tension with. And letting that go is a powerful health promoting, positive and adaptive stress coping mechanism. But those kinds of things, when you engage in forgiveness and love and kindness and gratitude and compassion, understand you're stimulating very health promoting parts of your brain that will help the rest of your body heal. Next slide. So some specific tips that you can think about that build off of trying to stimulate that healthy part of the brain. Always be educated on the facts. Don't trust, even including listening to me today, don't trust what people tell you, particularly when it's coming from the TV or with people who have other agendas. Do your own research. You're smart. You know yourself better than others, and that includes knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, and kind of adhere to your strengths while working on your weaknesses, but adhere to your strengths, and be yourself. If we are isolated, technology is a wonderful thing to have around now. I'm old enough to know days when there wasn't technology. There was no iPad. There was no cell phone. and it was hard to connect. So there's nothing wrong with using technology for positive coping strategies, and that's something that's helped us with COVID now by, for example, me communicating with my mother, maybe you communicating with a loved one in a personal care, assisted living, or nursing home setting. Be smart with your travel and with your snow removal. Don't do anything that's going to hurt your back or cause undue injury or pain or increase safety risks such as an automobile accident. Ice is a real risk, so be careful with that. Exercise as you can. This might mean stretching in your own room because you can't get out. Doing yoga is a wonderful psychologically health promoting and cognitively stimulating exercise. Walking is still one of the best exercises in the world if you're able. Meditation and pray, we've already talked about the spiritual healing, connecting with a higher being. It takes you beyond what the earthbound is granting you, and sometimes that's stress. So going beyond that is your way of maintaining control and beating it. We can do our best at working on eating healthy. If you're like me, that's been a bit difficult during COVID because isolation and reduced socialization oftentimes can change our eating habits, sometimes for the negative. So we all kind of laugh at ourselves with our COVID bellies. But in seriousness, it's also an opportunity to begin baby step eating healthier. It's always good to learn new information, and I always talk about the novel and complex. So learning new information means that you're developing new neural tracks. Most of us like to do what we're used to doing, so we're really not developing new neural connections, brain cell connections with stuff that's procedural or habitual. So it's a good opportunity perhaps during the winter months to take on something that maybe you've been thinking about. It's probably going to be difficult. And the reason it's difficult for you and challenging for you is you haven't laid down any brain cells to do it. But once you begin to practice it, it'll become more comfortable and you begin to get it. And the reason you're getting it is because you're literally laying down new brain cells to do it. Stay connected to family and friends. That's a key ingredient to longevity and to coping. I'm a big one on expressing one's feelings. Doreen was kind enough to introduce me to a local reporter, media person, and that was one of my major themes was that through COVID, one of the things I've been trying to promote for businesses of all types and families and friends is to talk. You'd be surprised how many of the people around you are thinking the same things, feeling the same things, but we're not permitting people an opportunity to talk and express that. And it's been very cathartic for a lot of people. Regardless of background, just to be able to say, hey, this is kind of what I'm going through. Talk to your medical doctor about blue light if you're an individual who really struggles with loss of sunlight and you may be prone or vulnerable to seasonal affective disorder. There are blue light lamps that your doctor can talk to you about. I told you about turning off. That means turn off the media, turn off the computer, turn off your iPad, and tune into yourself. The most wonderful miracle ever designed, the human brain, sits right between your ears. And give it a fair chance to think and create and innovate, to meditate and to be mindful. Gratitude, we talked about, follows from humility, and less is better. Work on kindness, kind acts. By giving of yourself, you will feel better. When I give of myself, oftentimes people will give me some sort of token of appreciation. I really don't want that because the gift I get is by giving to others. And so I've been working on that myself. The greatest, most important neurochemical and healthy neurochemical we have and behavior we have is love. And engage in that more often and practice that more often, particularly with those who are difficult to love. Literally giving things away can be health promoting. If you're going to be in a situation where you're isolated because of weather and maybe because of COVID, what a wonderful time to kind of go through the house or the apartment or the condo and to begin to bag up some things you don't need. I guarantee you, because I've gone through this myself several times in my life, you have all kinds of things in the house that are clutter. And clutter is not good for the brain, okay, because it clutters the brain. And the brain doesn't like that. The brain likes balance and rhythms. And so by giving things away, you're not only going to help yourself, but you're going to help others who need those things more than you. Control what you can. We're all human, so we get anxious and uptight and stressed about trying to control things we can't. So remember, control things you can. I try to give you some of those general tips that really begin between the ears. And I told the surgeons the same thing. You can go get an app, you can get an exercise machine, you can get a vitamin, but ultimately, if you're not working on what's going on between your ears, none of that's going to work, okay? Because it has to start and end between the ears. So the rest of the body will follow. And really create time each day for yourself. You know, in my opinion, Americans are not very good at this. We're really good at filling up our schedule and our calendar because we think more is better. I've seen Americans actually get more anxious when they have free time. It's an interesting paradox. It doesn't make sense. When I've tried to get them to relax through breathing exercises, they become more anxious. That's how sort of far off the grid we've become. So during these winter months, work a bit on and enjoying and being grateful for the time that you may have, and work on yourself and see it as your time to self-nurture. Okay, Lyle.
Oh, that was great, Dr. Nussbaum. Thank you so much. What a, just such wonderful messages and just right on point. And, I think sometimes we play our own tricks with our minds and just our minds get to rolling too fast. And I know sometimes I wake up during the night and then I can't get back to sleep. But we just have to calm ourselves. Can you speak to that at all? I know that's one of the things that I struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, it's really true for me too, Doreen, and for so many Americans that you think about the behaviors that are sensitive to stress. Memory is one of them. We talked about that. I become more forgetful. Doesn't mean I have a disease. Sleep is another one. Sleep is one of those behaviors that gets easily disrupted. And think about it. Stress is one of the things that can do it. A medication change can do it. Pain can do it. A change in environment can do it. How many of you have ever said, I had to go here to this city, like I was in Pennsylvania, it's a different bed. It's not my normal surrounding. So, our way of coping with stress sometimes is to lose sleep. And so that's telling us I'm not coping effectively. And that's where we can become a bit more mindful and to think about what may be going on. If it's bad enough, Doreen and everyone, I've literally had folks, I teach them to get out of bed after 15 minutes because 15, 20 minutes, you should really start to be falling asleep. Hopefully you don't have the TV on. Hopefully you're not eating in bed. Hopefully you're not reading in bed, these kinds of things that we tend to do. The bed's really a place to sleep and to be close to someone you may love. But if you're not sleeping after 20 or so minutes, you should really get up and even create what I call a worry chair. And this is an example where what I tell clients and patients and friends is, okay, you want to worry. Let's not try to fight that. Let's encourage you to worry, but let's do it in the worry chair. So I want you to go over there and sit in the chair and worry as much as you want to worry. If you need a few things to worry about, I'll give you some things that I'm worrying about, all right? But don't leave that chair until you feel good and ready that you've done a good job worrying. Then come back to bed because we want to make sure the brain remains conditioned to when I go to bed, I'm going to sleep. But at a minimum, if your sleep is disrupted, let it be a good thing in that it's telling you I need to get better control of something that is going on in my life. Sometimes we don't know what it is. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure it out. Sometimes it's work related. Sometimes it's bills. Sometimes it's whatever. But once we understand it, then we can manage it and work with it. But sleep disruption is sort of your body's way of saying, Paul, Doreen, let's call time out here and become mindful about what may be going on in my life and how can I cope a little bit better.
Very good. Very good. We have another question that's come in too through our Facebook page on how much does stress and diet impact stress in your life? How much does your diet impact stress?
Yeah, so there's no question. We really learned a lot about the importance of the gut and the brain, the relationship there, neurochemically, but also behaviorally. And if, again, because we become fairly procedural habitual in our behavior if we just stop and take a deep breath and think about what are we eating? Were you even aware that you were eating? And what were you eating? And begin to develop a relationship between what kinds of foods was I eating, was I eating when I felt this way. Interestingly, when we're feeling down in the dumps, we're more likely to go eat the high carbs. Those are the treats.
Sugar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for that is, from a brain perspective, is the carbs help to produce serotonin ultimately. And so your brain is like saying, I'm down in the dumps, for Pete's sake, would you go get a Twinkie? Okay. That's not good for you, but what it's doing is it's increasing your serotonin to help you feel better. Now, the goal is, let's get to that increased serotonin in ways that are more adaptive. Now, let's flip that on its head. You can begin to make baby step changes, because changing eating behaviors is not easy. You first of all understand perhaps what deficiencies you have. Vitamin supplementation is $1 billion industry in this country, yet most Americans don't even know if they have any deficiency. So you actually have to go get that checked. And that's, again, gets back to, if I take more, it's got to be better. And that's not the case. Your vitamin B may be fine. You don't need to take a vitamin B. Okay. But if I'm eating certain foods, that can tell me I may be having some difficulty coping with something. But on another way, if I'm beginning in baby step fashion to eat healthier foods, increased grains, increased fruits, increased vegetables, what we call the Mediterranean diet, increased intake of omega-3s, which you get in fatty fish, I'm going to start to feel good about some of the things I'm doing. I'm going to start to promote endorphins, kind of the good feel hormone in my brain. And that's going to lead to a whole series of events in my body that are very good, such as better emotional health, reduced inflammation, enhanced immune system. And that's from the foods. And nutritional neurosciences, nutritional health, you can think of it almost as a prescription, like you would get in your medicine cabinet. The foods we eat become very, very important. Now, starting with me, that's a challenge. But if we're mindful, we got a better shot at eating healthier things and trying to get away from sort of the maladaptive eating habits we have.
Right. Oh, that's so sensible. It makes such good sense. And I love what you said too about, taking this time to nurture ourselves. This is the perfect opportunity. We're not going out as much and doing things and commuting. We have more time to work out and take care of ourselves, and just to be good to ourselves and get plenty of rest and that kind of stuff. So I love what you said, and I appreciate the tips on sleep. I don't suffer from it often, but once in a while it is kind of one of those things that keeps you up all night. But
yeah, Doreen, we have about 40 million Americans with a sleep disorder, believe it or not, 40 million.
Oh, wow. Well, Dr. Nussbaum, thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure to visit with you today and spend time with you and learn more about winter wellness and how we can take care of one another and ourselves, and be kind to one another and do those kindness things that will make us feel better in the long run as well.
Thank you so much for letting me be part, Doreen. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy holidays to you as well. Take care, Dr. Nussbaum. And thank you all. Please join us next month, too. We're going to get together again on the third Wednesday at 3:00. And we'll be doing a program focusing on healthy living for the second half of life. For those of us who are 50 plus, we're going to get together with Chandra Zeman-Belinsky and Katie Jonke. Chandra's with the NDSU Extension Group here in Burleigh County, and Katie Jonke is with the Bismarck Burleigh Public Health. And they have a wonderful program I think you'll really enjoy as well. So remember, these programs are being recorded, and they'll be available to view later on our YouTube page. And also, thank you again for joining us today for our Passport to Healthy Living Winter Wellness Program. Have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you for joining us this month. Thank you.